Om Namo Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiret Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So the knowledge that brings one nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is Sri Ishopanishad. So here we have seen in the introduction that how there is 4 defects that we have been suffering from. So because of these defects, we need the Vedas. Then we have understood how Vedas give us universal axiomatic wisdom, or Vedic knowledge is superior to Pratyaksha Anuman knowledge, and how only way to know about transcendental is the Vedas, and how Krishna is the ultimate goal. So firstly shlokas we understood how to live in harmony with Ishwar. The next shlokas we understood how Ishwar can be understood by spiritual vision. And today we are going to be completing about the right and wrong Vidya. And then we have an understanding about the right and wrong Upasana in next week. And the last couple of weeks we'll be talking about prayers so that Krishna reveals himself. So the invocation was Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. So here what we have understood is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a complete absolute truth. Material world is complete. Human form offers complete facility. Sense gratification is illusory completeness. And devotional service is the real completeness. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magruda kasyasvidadhanam. So here what we understood is the glory of the Vedic knowledge, how the Lord is proprietor of everything, how everyone has a quota in nature, how there is quota in human possession of the earth, how there is quota in human diet, and how we have to live according to the Ishavasya principle. Asurya nama te loka andhena tamasa vrataha tamste pretyabhigachanti ye kecha atmahano janaha. So here we have understood how karma bandhana causes death, how human life offers liberation through a karma, how Vedas ultimately lead to a karma, how we have to begin by bringing Krishna into sense gratificatory life, how without Krishna everything is in vain, and how we can make all kinds of altruisms into karma yoga. Purvan eva hi karmani yudi vishesha chatam samaha evam tvai nanyatheto asti na karma lipyate nare. So here we understood who is a demon, who is a soul killer. We have understood the importance of liberating the soul and not killing it. If you don't use higher facilities of human life form, then we have to live worse than animals in this life and go to hell in next life. We have understood how failure also in liberating soul brings glorious results. So definitely if we are having success, we cannot even imagine the kind of success it will be. How modern politicians unfortunately are acting as demons, and how we can solve all problems forever. Anejad ekam manaso javiyo nainad deva apnuvan purvamarshad tadadhavatu anyanadtheti tishtad tasmin apomatarishva dadhati. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place, he controls those who supply air and rain. He surpasses all in excellence. So here, we have understood how absolute truth cannot be understood by speculation. Only revelation helps us to understand God and his energies. The energies are non-different, yet different. Because we are limited, we can understand unlimited only through his revelation. And so what is required is that we play our part, and then we'll be given the understanding. Tad ejati, tad na ejati, tad dure, tad avantike, tad antarasya sarvasya, tad u sarvasya astya bahyataha. So here we are understanding how the Supreme is inconceivable, how absolute truth is far yet near. We have understood the science of deity worship. We have understood how God is nirguna yet saguna, and how the Lord pervades everything, yet is separate from everything. Yatu sarvani bhutani atma eva nupashyati sarva bhuteshu atmanam cha tatahana vijugupsate. So here understanding was about the Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, Uttam Adhikari. and importantly about the difference between false and a real. So that is what this shloka was. And the same shloka continued with the 8th shloka, wherein it was Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atma Eva Bhuta Vijanatah Tatra Komah Kah Shoka Ekatvam Anupashyata. So it states, one who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So here we understood the oneness between energy and energetic, for which we saw the example of fire. Then we saw the oneness in quality, not in quantity. So here we saw the example of drop of water and the ocean. Then we saw how oneness in interest brings enjoyment, like all the family members, all the nation. How separate interests cause shoka and moha. And so if you have to achieve real happiness, we have to become one in interest with God. Zaparyagacha shukram akayam avranam ashnaviram shuddham apapa vidyam kavi manisi paribhuhu swayambhuhu yathata athyato arthan vyadadhacha chashvatabhya shamabhyah. So here we understood how Lord is unembodied, akayam, he is without waste, ashnivaram, how he is omnipotent, shukram, how he is fulfiller of desires, yatha athyato arthan, and how he is paribhu, supreme. So not only supreme, he is swayambhu, self-sufficient, he is shuddham, he is antiseptic, just like sun rays falling even in the dirtiest of the places purifies them. Similarly, Lord is able to purify everything around himself. And how he is apapa vidyam, prophylactic. Then we understood andatamaha pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tatah bhuya ivate tama ya uvidyam rataha. So those who engage in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. So here we saw how even Vidya is not better than Avidya. How, what happens if you start culturing Avidya? How is the difference between those who are in Rataha, in Vidya? How modern education is godless. You have understood the difference between Veda Rataha and Maya Apahrita Jnana. Anyad evahu vidyaya, anyad ahuhu avidyaya, iti shushrumadhiranam, yenastadavicha chakshirehe. The wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. So yesterday we saw how Vidya leads to desirable qualities and Avidya leads to undesirable qualities, and how only a Dhira can teach Vidya to us. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, important aspects that we discussed yesterday and which are important, which I am repeating again, is about modern education. How, because of that, there is complete failure of transformation and it has led to disruption. Basically, knowledge is not for pulling, but pulling towards Krishna. And unfortunately, that is exactly what is happening. So what we know is not as important as how you live. So that has to be the focus of our life. How do we live and how do we get pulled towards Krishna? And if the knowledge that we get is towards this, then it is jnana. Otherwise, it is avidya, nescient. And who can give us this knowledge is only a dhira. See, practically speaking, the material body and mind are bad markets for the spiritual entity. So this we have seen yesterday. So living entity has actual functions in the living spiritual world. But this material world is dead. Only as long as this spiritual spark is available, we are able to manipulate the dead lumps of matter. And so the dead world appears to be living. Actually, it is these living souls, the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, who are actually getting the world moving. So this aspect, the difference between spiritual world material world and how dead material world is still seen as living, this knowledge is understood by the Dhira. And how has he understood it? By hearing from superior authorities and by following the regulative principles. So they are the Dhira. So to follow the regulative principles, it is said that we must take shelter of a guru. Because the transcendental message and regulative principles are coming down in disciplic succession. So this knowledge does not come in the hazardous way of the nescient education that we see. And we can become Dhira only by submissively hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Let us take example of Arjuna. He became Dhira by submissively hearing from Lord Krishna. So the perfect disciple has to be like Arjuna. And the spiritual master will be as good as the Lord himself. This is the actual process of learning Vidya from Dhira, that is the undisturbed. So yesterday we also saw how Adhiras create havoc. So regarding that, it was said that Adhira is one who has not undergone the training of a Dhira, and he cannot be an instructive leader. So modern politicians who try to pose themselves as Dhira by wearing saffron or any such things, they're actually Adhiras. And one cannot expect perfect knowledge from them. Most of the people are just trying to see how they can have better remuneration. So they cannot lead the people to the right path of self-realization. And hence we must hear submissively from Dhira in order to attain actual education. And how do we culture it? It is through the 18 items which have been mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. One should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. One should not pose himself as religion is simply for name and fame. One should not become a source of anxiety to others by the actions of his body, by the thoughts of his mind, or by his words. One should learn forbearance, even in the face of provocation from others. One should learn to avoid duplicity in his dealings with others. One should search out a bona fide spiritual master who can lead him gradually to the stage of spiritual realization. And one must submit himself to such a spiritual master, rendering him service and asking relevant questions. In order to approach the platform of self-realization, one must follow the regulative principles enjoined in the revealed scriptures. One must be fixed in the tenets of the revealed scriptures. One should completely refrain from practices which are detrimental to the interest of self-realization. One should not accept more than he requires for the maintenance of the body. One should not falsely identify himself with the gross material body, nor should one consider those who are related to his body to be his own. One should always remember that as long as he has a material body, he must face the miseries of repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. There is no use in making plans to get rid of these miseries of the material body. The best course is to find out the means by which one may regain his spiritual identity. 13th was, one should not be attached to more than the necessities of the life required to maintain. One should not be more attached to wife, children, and home than the revealed scriptures ordain. One should not be happy or distressed over desirables and undesirables, knowing that such feelings are just created by the mind. One should become an unalloyed devotee of the personality of Goddess Shri Krishna and serve him with rapt attention. One should develop a liking for residence in a secluded place with a calm and quiet atmosphere, favorable for spiritual culture, and one should avoid congested places where non-devotees congregate. One should become a scientist or a philosopher and conduct research into spiritual knowledge, recognizing that spiritual knowledge is permanent, whereas material knowledge ends with the death of the body. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Thapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we continue to the next shloka, that is shloka number 11, wherein we are going to be understanding about how this whole thing ends. Vidyam cha yah tad vidobhyayam sah avidyam mrityum tirtva vidyam amrutam ashnute. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Just see the whole changeover which has happened. So after having talked about how Vidya is also bad and Avidya definitely is bad, this shloka in Ishopanishad is now telling us how both have to be learned side by side. Vidyam cha yah tad vedobhyaya sah avidyam mrityum trirtva vidyam amrutam ashnute. So Vidyam, that is knowledge in fact, and Avidyam, nescience, a person who knows Veda. The word Veda here is not about the Vedas, but Veda here means knows. Ubhayam is both. And how both? Simultaneously. So what? Vidyam, Avidyaya, by culture of nescience, what do they do? Mrityum tirtva. So mrityum is repeated birth and tirtva is transcending. So how does this happen? By culture of knowledge, amrutam, deathlessness, ashnute, enjoys. So only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. See, no one likes to die. Everyone wants to be immortal. And that is the subject which comes out of this particular shloka, Amritam. So this is what Prabhupada discussed in details. So he has talked about Amrutum Ashnute, how immortality is impossible materially. So he has given the example of Hiranyakashipu for him. How immortality is possible only by following Krishna's teaching. How Krishna comes to make us immortal. How self-gratification binds us to mortality. So restricting it is important. How Vidyam cha Avidyam cha, that is harmonization of material needs with spiritual advancement through apara dharma is important. And for same thing, again, how attaining immortality through para dharma. So these are the topics which have been discussed in detail by Srila Prabhupada. Now, the question comes, why immortality is impossible? The answer is very simple, which we have been seeing repeatedly. There are 6 changes in material body, which continuously happen. First of all, birth, then growth, then stay for some time, then produce some byproduct, then diminishing, then dwindling, and then vanish. So these 6 kind of changes continuously happen. Sada samudvigna dhiyam asadgrahat is what has been mentioned. So in this material world, just like this material body, it will not stay. Everyone knows it has a beginning. It stays for some time, it will transform. It will become old, dwindle, and then finish. But what happens? The moment there is finishing, death, everyone nearby who were related to that body, they feel bad, they cry. But actually, there is another life where there is no transformation, eternal. Nitya Shashvata Yam Na Hanyate Hanyamane Sharire is what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. That is the spiritual world. But for that spiritual world, we have no information. We have got very little experience. Technically speaking, spiritual world means complete peaceful, shanti. Bhoktaram yagyatapsam sarvaloka maheshwaram jnatva mam shantim rachati. So it is very important that we use this life to understand God or Krishna if we want shanti. Jnatva mam shantim rachati. If you want shanti, then we have to know Lord, who is Krishna, not vague idea. Jnatva mam shantim rachati is what Krishna has meant. So, coming back to this material world, it has got these 6 changes. And because of these 6 changes, it cannot have any kind of immortality. The ensouled matter grows, reproduces, preserves itself, whereas the ordinary matter does not. So, this cannot be immortal. Actually, this body itself is a bad bargain. Because of this, dive is how it is being generally remembered. Because of the duration, the intensity, the variety, and the extent. The duration, definitely, the body has a limited duration. It has taken birth and it will die. How, when, where, what time, no one knows, but it has got a limited duration. The intensity is going to be differing with different bodies. The variety, 84 lakh species. And the extent that we have in this body. So it's only keeping us engaged. While we are liberated souls. We want to be liberated. So this body is a bad bargain. And worse still is, you have the worst use of this bad bargain. Because we are obsessed only with earth and karma. There is complete spiritual degradation and so material devastation. Like a couple of days ago, someone was discussing in one of the katha how a particular place was completely devastated with natural earthquake. More than 7.4 Richter scale. Not 1, but 2. So even the safest of the buildings, they could not withstand 2 earthquakes in limited span of time. And they fell like packs of cards. So it's not material advancement, it's material devastation. And along with that, what had happened was spiritual degradation. Because we are only talking about economy. We are only talking about our lust, our desires. And this is the bad use of this bad bargain. While if we use bhakti, then we can get the best of everything. See, any karma we do, any activity do, it is abusement of the senses. So if you do it for material purpose, it's natural. But then it is binding. If we use bhakti, that is use the material senses for spiritual purpose, it is natural and liberating. And when we talk about only jnana, that is reject senses for either material or spiritual purpose, it is non-binding but it is unnatural. And since it is unnatural, it cannot be perpetual. So the best thing to do is bhakti, wherein we use the material senses for spiritual purposes, which is going to be natural and liberating. So Kaitava dharma is something which is recommended. Because anything short of pure devotional service can satisfy neither Krishna nor the soul. So we have to reach the level of prema, pure devotional service, Shuddha Bhakti. That is what we learned in the Bhakti Rasamrita. And we have learned how we reach that level. So it is very important that we continue this practice. Because if we don't reach that level, then we are only making our plans for again being born somewhere, again being bound in some form or the other. And what will we gain out of it then? Nothing, absolutely nothing. So having jnana is also not good. Complete material activities are definitely not good. The only solution is the midway, which is the bhakti way. See, there is absolutely no protection, practically speaking. Because since the creation, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life. But the laws of nature, they are cruel. And so we cannot avoid death. No one wants to die. Even I don't want to die. Neither do I want to become old or be diseased. But the natural laws of nature, they will not give immunity to anyone, including myself, from old age disease or death. And neither we have got medically such better knowledge that we can solve these problems of old age disease and death. So you have discovered nuclear bombs, you have discovered biological weapons, but then they are only accelerating the process of death. You have not been able to discover anything which will protect us from the cruel hands of old age disease. Hiranyakashipu is a perfect example for that. Now, Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft bread. So, Hiranyakashipu, he was a king who was very much advanced material. And he wanted to conquer the death by material acquisitions and on the basis of his nescience. So he did meditation, very severe meditation. So severe that all the inhabitants of all planetary systems became disturbed by his mystic. So Brahma was forced to come to him. And then he asked Brahma the benediction to become Amar. Brahma said he could not award such benediction because even he is not Amar. Even he has to die. And this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 8.70. Brahma lives a long time, but does not mean he is immortal. So, if even Brahma is not immortal, how could he have given the benediction of immortality to Hiranyakashipu? It was not possible. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharayad brahmano viduhu ratrim yuga sahasrantam teha oho ratra vido jana. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night. And accordingly, he lives 100 years. So, now Hiranyakashipu didn't know what to do, but he was very cunning. And he wanted to enjoy money, and for that he wanted to become immortal. So indirectly he asked benedictions so that he could fulfill his desire to become immortal. So Brahma told him that he could not be practically given immortality So then he requested that he not be killed by any man, animal, god, or any other living being within the 84 lakh species. He also asked that he should not die on land, in the air or water, or by any weapon. So he thought that this will save him from death. However, he was killed by Narsiya Bhagwan ki Jai, the Lord's half lion, half man incarnation. He did not use any weapon. He killed with his nails. He did not kill him on land or in the air or in the water. He killed on the land. So no one could imagine Narsimha. So the whole point is that even Hiranyakashipu, the most powerful of materialists, could not become deathless by his various plans. So what can be accomplished by us today, though we are just like Hiranyakashipus, but our plans are actually thwarted from moment to moment. We are dying every moment. We are facing vipada every footstep. Padam padam yat vipadam. And shanahe shanahe kshanahe. So Ishopanishad is instructing us not to make one-sided attempts for the struggle for existence. Because the laws of nature are so hard that they will not allow anyone to surpass. So if you want to attain permanent life, you must be prepared to go back to body. And the process by which we go there is a different branch of knowledge. So it has to be learned from the Vedic scriptures like Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. So to attain happiness in this life and have a permanent blissful life, you must study the sacred literatures, obtain transcendental knowledge, surrender to a guru, follow the instructions. So the moment this conditioned living being, whom we have forgotten our eternal relationship with God and accepted this temporary place as all, that will be removed. So Lord has kindly delivered these scriptures and we have to take them seriously. So living being is a spiritual entity and he can be happy only by going to the spiritual. And see, Krishna is very merciful. So as we saw, he himself incarnates to make us immortal. Immortal by going back to his dharma. And he is also sending his own messengers, bona fide servants, to propagate this message. Now, every one of us, we are the parts and parcels. We are like his beloved sons. So he is more sorry that we are not with him and that we are suffering in this material condition. So the miseries of this material world actually remind us of our incompatibility with the dead matter. Those who are intelligent take note of these reminders and engage themselves in culture of Vidya or transcendental knowledge. And human life is the best opportunity for this. A human who does not take advantage is a Naradam, the lowest of human beings. The path of Avidya, on the other hand, or advancement of the material knowledge for sense gratification, is the path of repeated birth and death. The living entity, he is spiritual. He has no birth or death. It is only for the outer covering, the body. So we have seen that is compared to taking off and birth to putting on new outward garments. So anyone who is foolish and absorbed in culture of nescience, do not mind this process. They have been enamored with the beauty of the illusory energy. And so they undergo the miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature. Therefore, the knowledge of Vidya is very, very essential. If you are only going to be running after sense enjoyment, then it has to be restricted as far as possible. Because unrestricted is the path of ignorance and death. Every living being in his original spiritual form, they have all the senses. But now they are covered by the material body. And so they are perverted reflections of the activities of the original spiritual senses. So this is a disease condition in which we are suffering. Real sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is in a pure form, free from all material contamination, we can have real enjoyment. See, just like a patient, unless he recovers his health, he cannot enjoy anything. So the human form's aim has to be not to enjoy the perfected senses, but to cure the material disease. Aggravation of material disease is no sign of knowledge, but a sign of ignorance. See, our fear should remain 98.6 degrees. But the moment it increases from 105 to 106 7 degrees, we have to intervene to remove the fever, to reduce the fever. So similarly, the modern material civilization, instead of reducing the fever, is making the temperature of the feverish material condition more and more. Foolish politicians, they are also crying that any moment the world may go to hell. This is all the result of the material knowledge and neglect of spiritual knowledge. So Ishopanishad in this particular verse is warning us not to follow this dangerous path which is leading to death. On the contrary, we must develop the culture of spiritual knowledge so that we become completely free from cruel hands of death. But then that does not mean that we have to stop all the human activities. There is no question of stopping activities. The question is only wiping out one's temperature altogether when trying to recover from a disease. So to make the best use of a bargain is the appropriate expression. So it's like we need to culture the spiritual knowledge which will help the body and mind and maintain the body and mind in required range to reach our goal. So if normal temperature is to be maintained at 98.6 degrees Celsius, what we see the great acharyas and munis and the sons, they have done. They have created a balanced program of spiritual and material knowledge. So no misuse of human intelligence for disease sense gratification. Now, if you have got disease tendency to a sense gratification, then that can be regulated in the Vedas under the principles of salvation. So we see this system wherein we have religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. But unfortunately, today no one is interested in religion or salvation. They have only one aim, that is sense gratification. For that, they want to have economic development. The misguided men think that religion can be maintained because it contributes to economic development. So, in order to have further guarantee of sense gratification after death, in heaven, everyone wants to go there to some system of religious observance. That is not the purpose of dharma. The dharma, vrata, or the path of religion is for self-realization. And economic development is required just to maintain body in sound, healthy condition. So we should lead a healthy life with a sound mind to realize Vidyam, true knowledge. This life is not meant for working like an ass or for culturing the Avidyam. That has to be understood. So the path of Vidya that we see, it's best explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, which directs us to utilize the human form to inquire into absolute truth. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. And step by step, Brahman, Paramatma, and then Bhagavan. So we have to attain knowledge and detachment by following the 18 principles which we summarized in the last shloka. Because the central purpose of these principles is attainment of transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead. So everyone is encouraged to learn the art of devotional service. And this is the guaranteed path to the aim of Vidya, which is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The culture of Vidya is also summarized in Srimad Bhagavatam. Tasmade kena manasa Bhagavan Shatvatam Patihi Shatavyo Krititasvaya Chaha Deya Pujyascha Nityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. So unless religion, economic development, and sense gratification aim toward the attainment of devotional service to the Lord, they are all simply different forms of nescience, as the Ishopanishad indicates in the subsequent mantras that we are going to be saying. So it is important that we understand this, we take this up seriously, and then follow this mantra to the T. Vidyam cha yah tadvedobhyayam sah vidyam mrityum tirtva vidyam amrutam ashnute. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Hare Krishna. Dandot Pranam. I'm sharing the attendance link